Tax and utilities. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay, so we all know we're in a bit of a spiritual war here, and it's a war of attrition, and they're going to be trying to wear us down. And obviously, the first thing they're going to try is, financially wear us down. Okay, and it's going to be a hard time we're facing. Okay. Right now, unprecedented numbers of pensioners will die. It's not may die. They know what they're doing, right? Will die of the cold, as Bill saw. Right? Now, the truss woman started saying, "Oh, we'll put some kind of, give somebody money, a little bit of money," but it's not going to help. Obviously, it's not going to help because they don't want to help. Okay. Right now, they're trying to make excuses why it's happening. They're blaming the Ukraine war mostly, but just look at the profits that are being made. Yeah, in the billions. Up British Gas up 400% from last year. Yeah, and yet our bills are up an average of 54%. So up to about 1,900, a year. That's the average. Okay. And you just have to look down the list of. I'm in a way. I'm in a way. I should sit down. If you look down the list of the salaries that these executives are getting as well, it's outrageous. Okay. While people are going to die of the cold. Yeah. But again, this is all an illusion. Okay, they're trying to say that this energy is scarce. But has anybody thought of where they're getting the electricity from? Where are they getting the electricity from? Do you think? Okay, where's the electricity actually coming from? Oh, yeah, cheat. Okay, little video to watch. Hold on.
According to our favourite source of information, the UK's first grid tower was erected in 1928. Its purpose was to transport electricity to the outer reaches of the mainland, supplying its ever-growing population with the power it needed for expansion into the Industrial Revolution. Before the expansion of the national grid, businesses used local coal or gas-fired generators and all manner of contraptions to power their factories. So the emergence of electricity delivered to your doorstep, so to speak, was hugely popular. We have been led to believe that these high-tension power lines transport electricity from one place to another. This is true, but the thousands of miles of cable have another lesser-known purpose, and that purpose could change the way you think about power generation. And it also begs the question, why the hell are they keeping this information from us? The word air is derived from the Latin word air, or ether. The ether is the air that we breathe, but apart from keeping us all alive, it has another little-known property that you probably didn't realise. The ether is electric. Our whole existence depends on electricity, but that topic is for another video. The ether carries a charge. From the ground upwards, it increases by 100 volts for every metre in height. That is cumulative if grounded. This energy can be harvested from the air, ether, by hanging very long wires high up on pylons stretching right across the country. Have you ever wondered why these thousands of miles of cables are supported on huge, mega expensive and very ugly pylons, when it would have been much easier and much cheaper to run these cables under the ground? Or how about under the existing roads? Nope, we apparently prefer seeing these massive monstrosities winding their way across the otherwise beautiful landscape. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never, in my 50 years of driving all over the country, ever seen a new line of pylons being erected. All services are now buried under the extensive network of roads. A quick search for your local area on Google Earth will show you power lines and pylons. If you try following some of the lines, you will find that some of them start and finish at the same substation. So they're transporting electricity back to where it came from. I think not. No, this network of high-tension lines is generating or harvesting electricity from the ether. So apart from the infrastructure itself, it's abundant, it's absolutely free, it's absolutely renewable, absolutely sustainable, and as green as you could possibly get. All you have to do is run miles and miles of cable up in the air, out into the countryside and back again. However, there is a catch. As your town or city expands its suburbs, they will inevitably encroach on the existing power lines. There are many, many stories and examples of construction companies having to build around and underneath these pylons. Doesn't it seem strange to you that rather than bury these cables under the new building project, they just leave them there? Now you have your answer. They can't.
So there you go. Yeah, this illusion of scarcity is just that. Yeah, they're collecting energy from the atmosphere. Yeah, even oil, okay, isn't a fossil fuel. It's actually created by rock. You know, mineral oil. It's essentially it's a renewable thing that the earth creates. Okay, but they've created this idea of scarcity so they could sell us these utilities. That's why there's so many of these companies, because it's money for old rope. Yeah? They're not actually producing anything. They're not actually selling you anything. Right? But it's all money for old rope. And right now there's this initiative of don't pay. Has everyone seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a trap, as Admiral Akbar says. It's a trap. Yeah. Because I think the system is waiting for a mass, refusal to pay. You know, if the muggles out there just stop paying, they're ready for that. Yeah, I believe they've ordered something like so many 100,000 smart meters ready to whack them in. Yeah. So we're talking about today the clean hands approach, right? So,
tell us what the trap is. So what are they going to do?
Well, if you suddenly stop paying, well, they've got systems ready for that. They'll pounce on you, and if you don't know what to do about it, right, you'll go through, you'll respond in very predictable ways, and they're ready for it. You know, they'll send bailiffs around. But if you think that bailiffs have got the power and to do what they do, yeah, then you'll fall into the trap. Yeah. But the clean hands approach is the honourable way to deal with this. The honourable way of not paying these things, okay? Because we're being fooled, we're being tricked, and rather than just not paying at all, right? You can go through a process and do it with clean hands, the honest and responsible approach. So let's have a look at utility companies. So, utilities actually used to be free. Turns out that, I don't want to go too far into the Cester KV Act and all that, but we became the resources that this country borrows money against. You know, we are the resources. And one of the benefits of becoming the resources was that we were going to get our utilities free. Okay. Now, turns out that only corporations had to pay to use the public utilities. Yeah, there are utilities. These corporations come along. Well, I'm afraid they have to pay if they're going to use our utilities. So at one point, meters were added because there was a false flag event or something, and they said, well, we're going to have to make sure everyone gets their fair, has their fair share and doesn't take too much and whatever. So they put meters in. Still no paying for them, but they put meters in. And then, again, this is all very slow. They started saying, well, everyone's got to pay a little bit for the infrastructure to keep it running. And everybody was happy about doing that. And then in the 70s, Yeah, if you're I think some of you are old enough to remember the 70s. There was all these strikes and outages, which were government created. They foisted that on us, right, to create fear and everything, and just so that Thatcher could come along and say, we need these utilities to run like businesses, and then she sold off the businesses, right? She sold the. Does anybody remember that campaign? Tell Sid. Tell Sid you can buy shares, yeah?
Yes, lass.
Garibaldi's, please. These British Gas shares. Did you know they'll be publishing the prospectus on November the 25th?
I didn't.
If you want to apply, you can reserve one over the phone. If you see Sid, tell him, will you?
Tell you what, Duncan, what's that? If you want to apply for British Gas shares, you need to get your money ready soon. If you see Sid, will you tell him that?
The British Gas prospectus and application form will be published on November the 25th. For more information and to reserve a prospectus...
That was just to get us, involved in it, in a kind of unimportant way. So they had a small wodge of shares that were going to sell to the proles, but the big businesses were just going to buy up all the shares, okay? And then anybody had those shares, well, they lost them at some point anyway. Okay, so it was literally sold to the big businesses, by stealth almost. It turns out, though, and I just found this out today. It turns out that Thatcher was actually acting in treason. There's a document that you can actually download. It was classified for 30 years, right? So that the guilty wouldn't be. Wouldn't face any repercussions. But Edward Heath basically sold our country to the EU, and committed treason. So any act of Parliament that was created after 1973 is null and void. It's aiding and abetting treason. And Margaret Thatcher selling the resources to big business, right, is null and void. Okay? Yes?
So I don't want to take you off track. Right? And I'm curious about what you're saying. Really interesting. So what you're saying was that it was treason. Edward Heath sold the EU.
Sold us.
Britain to the EU was a treasonous act. And what's the basis? What's the document to download?
The document is called FCO 30/1048. Yeah, and if you do a search for it, you'll find the PDF, and you'll find documents or pages that will explain, exactly what's in it, because it's like 200 pages of documents. So, but there's people who've dissected it already, and will point you to the relevant areas to look at. Okay.
So basically, you sold stuff that you didn't have to sell.
Treason is essentially trying to diminish our sovereignty, and putting us in the EU diminished our sovereignty. It gave the sovereignty over to the EU. That's treason, yeah. And there's so much, there's so much to go into. It's really exciting actually finding this stuff, but anyway, the point is that she was acting in treason. It means selling it. So I like to liken.
Sorry, and how was this treasonous? Because the act with which she did it was.
Well, first of all, she can't sell our property. She can't sell. If you've got a tree in your garden, your neighbour can't sell that tree.
What's it means to sell?
Yeah, it's not the government's resources to sell. It's ours. Yeah. So I like to liken it like a lemon tree. So imagine you've got a lemon tree in your back garden, okay? And somebody comes along and says, hey, I noticed some lemons have fallen from your tree. Can I have them? You say, yeah, go ahead. And the next week, the guy's on the corner selling lemonade. So if you went up to that guy and said, "Can I have some lemonade?" Is it going to be free to you? Or would you have to pay? Do you think?
It should be free to you.
It should be free to you because you provided in the lemons. Does anybody disagree with that? No. When I've said this, there's always a few who go, "But yeah, the guy had to work and make lemonade, so he must." No. Okay.
He didn't provide sugar then.
No, they didn't provide sugar. But here's the thing: if he charged you for that lemonade, next time he comes to your garden for lemons, are you going to just give them to him? No. Okay. So yeah, the lemonade should be free to you, and this is the thing: the resources of this country are ours, right? And it should be free to us because it's ours. Yeah.
Can I ask, when did utilities used to be free?
It was in the 1800s.
1800s.
Yeah, when this country
I was
was
gonna say, I
bankrupt.
can't remember, but obviously I can't.
Yeah.
It was a reward to the people for doing things.
Yeah.
And they promised it forever it would be free. That included gas, a
Mhm.
whole lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we've got short memories. Yeah, and they can if they move slowly enough, we don't notice. Yeah. So the thing about these energy companies, first thing to know is they're not energy suppliers. Okay. All they are, it turns out, they're actually credit brokers. Okay, they provide billing and metering services. That's it. They are charging you for digits on the meter, not for the gas, because they don't supply it. They're just charging you for digits on the meter. Okay. The other thing is you don't have a contract with these energy companies. If a company is trying to force you to pay something, there must be a contract. You'll find that in the Companies Act it's gone out of my head now. I think it's 1984. Companies Act 1984, Section 44. Okay, it says that if you're dealing with a company and they're demanding something of you, there must be a contract. Okay. The other thing is they can't cut you off because they don't supply the energy. Right? The national grid provides the infrastructure, so the wires and pipes are national grid. Yeah. So and the energy company doesn't supply the energy, so they can't cut you off. Yeah. There have been people being told that we'll dig up the street and turn your electricity off or cap your gas off. They can't do that because it's national grids infrastructure. Okay, so don't worry about this. They can't cut you off. So there can't be a signed contract because again they're a billing company. They're not supplying. So there is no. They can't give you a signed contract because that would be fraud. Okay. The point I'm trying to, all these things I'm telling you is the basis of the fraud that's being perpetrated on you. Yeah, because a lot of people have been brainwashed from school to think that if you don't pay for something, then you're doing something wrong. Yeah. Right? Well, the point is they're doing something wrong, right? And you all are being ripped off, right? So what you actually have is an assumed, unwritten agreement. Yeah? So essentially, if you act as though there's an agreement there, well, there is one now. Right? It's an assumed, unwritten one.
So
Okay?
if you've been paying in the past, would that not be an assumed agreement?
Sure.
Implied agreement?
But one of the best phrases you could ever use is, "It has come to my attention that," right? And that tells whoever you're talking to that, hang on, I've been going along under a certain misconception, but it's come to my attention there's something different. So now you can go, it's come to my attention that we don't have a contract. Yeah? So now you can go from that standpoint. So we're going to look at three sort of approaches here. First one, renegotiating the agreement. And who was it? Was it Suze? I was telling you, we're talking. That's the thing I was telling you about your tenants.
Okay.
Yeah. we can cancel the agreement, and we can change the meters. Okay? So, the method we're going to use is the good old bread and butter, the free man on the land thingy, which is called the conditional acceptance, which is a 3-letter process. Okay? So, it starts when you get an opponent serving you a notice. Okay? And that's usually enough to scare people into paying. So you send a notice of conditional acceptance. So you accept their notice conditionally. You specify some conditions. If you give them a time limit to give you the information you want, but if they fail to respond in that time limit, and when I say respond with substance, actually addressing the points that you've asked for, okay? If they don't do that in the time limit, you send them a notice of default, and I'm going to go through these in the first example. Send them a notice of default, an opportunity to cure, which means that they failed to respond, but I'm going to give you another one more chance, okay? Normally at this point they'll send an attempted response letter, yeah, which is usually a threat, okay? But the point is you stay on target. What you've asked for, they've not responded to, you stay on target, yeah? You can write a notice of non-response to say, thank you for your letter, but you didn't answer any of my queries. You now have 3 days left. You know, that's all you have to say, something like that. Ignore what they've said in their threat, because you're not talking about what they're threatening, you're talking about what you've asked for, okay? But when the time limit of this letter runs out, or this notice, then you write the final notice. It's notice of default and estoppel by acquiescence. I'm going to go through those terms in a little while, but it basically means that, okay, you've failed to answer, so now there's no basis of your claims. So you're done, essentially, okay? Now, these 3 letters essentially are court. It's the process of court. Yeah, there's a controversy between the 2 parties, and you've made an attempt to settle that, okay? And now with this notice, you've settled it. They can't provide evidence of their claims. It's over. So if you ever go to court, you can just take these, submit these into evidence and ask for summary judgment, because it's already been done, okay? That's the power of these letters. Now, again, once this notice has gone out, right, and you can actually, in this notice, add a fee schedule to say, you know, we've now come to an agreement. If you want to continue with this, I'm going to charge you for every letter you send me. And I'm going to charge you for a response. And I'm going to charge you for an inconvenience fee. And maybe you set a research fee. Anything you can chuck on if you want, whatever you want, because it's down to you. You know, you set your own charges. Okay? So, they'll usually come back with another attempted response letter with an even bigger threat, a more terrifying threat. Well, then you just send a courtesy letter, which basically says, thank you for your letter, but you do realise we've arrived at a summary judgment stage, and I'm charging you for your letter and my response, and my time and my inconvenience, and here's an invoice. Please pass it to your financial department. Okay, and you can actually, if they don't pay, take them to small claims court, submit the bundle, right, and your invoices, and it's an open and shut case. Okay.
Excuse me, Dave. Did you call it a summary judgment?
Yes.
If you go to court, if you're asked for
this represents a summary judgment. If you
other 3 process letters.
Yes.
Nothing's happened. They haven't contracted with you or anything, or answered your questions.
Yep.
If it goes to court, is that called a summary judgment? And you go, or you ask for summary judgment?
Well, this is essentially, look, okay, if I come up to you and I say,
Yeah.
you owe me 50 quid, pay up. And you say, well, prove to me that, I owe you money. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you 5 days to prove it.
Okay.
And I still, 5 days later, I come and
Yeah,
give me the money. You owe me.
I get the process. It's
Yeah.
just that what you say if you go to court or you're invited to court.
Well,
You call it a summary process.
yes, you send in your bundle and say, I've been in communication with this company. I'm after summary judgment here.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah.
Dave, excuse
Yeah.
me. 2 questions. So, what's the legal or lawful foundation for that process? And then also, what's likely to happen should it go to court?
The lawful basis of it is that you are supposed to. This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to settle the matter outside of court before you get to court. That's what you're supposed to. It actually says that in the Bible as well. Yeah, settle these things before you go to the magistrate. Okay, and this is your diligent attempt to try and settle the matter before it goes to court. If the other party doesn't want to play along, then they're at fault.
Sure. Okay, now I understand that, but is the legal foundation for that process in that I don't have a written contract with them in the first place?
Well,
they're trying to extract money from me.
We haven't got into the details yet. I'm just giving you the process, the overall process. Yeah, we're going to the details in a little while. Okay. So the first case study, which how many people have got this letter from a new company saying we're now your supplier, and now our prices are more. Okay, so this is the first case study. Switch to a new supplier. Okay, so the thing about when this happens, there's something that needs to be in place, and it never is. Okay, it's called a novation agreement. Yeah, it's a 3-way contract which extinguishes the original contract, yeah, and replaces it with another contract where a third party, which is a new energy company, right, will take up the rights and obligations that duplicate the original contract. Okay, and the thing about this though, consideration must be provided. Consideration sometimes is money. So did you get paid? Anyone who put their hands up, did you get any money from these? Okay, interesting. Did you get a form to sign before they phone? Right. Well, consideration must be provided unless the novation is documented in a deed signed by all the parties. So you can basically say, well, let's look at a conditional acceptance. Yeah. So, dear Mr. Batfastard, thank you for your letter dated, in which it relates to the demise of previous utility company, and that your company is now the new supplier. However, I may have opened the letter by mistake, as it is addressed to a person called Mr. David Murphy, and not to myself, the living man, first name Dave of the house Murphy. So it appears I might be opening Mr. Murphy's mail in error, especially since I don't recall opening an account with you, or granting you permission to access my personal data. Nor do I recall signing a novation agreement or deed of assignment, kind of the same thing. A novation agreement or deed of assignment, and I have no record of the consideration from yourselves for the new contract. Nonetheless, I'd be happy to enter into contract with your company on the condition that I receive the following proofs of claim. Material evidence, not opinion or hearsay, that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that all your correspondence was addressed to and intended for myself, the living man, first name of the house, last name, and not the person, Mr. David Murphy, whatever. So that is actually getting rid of the assumption that you were agreeing to be. I take it everybody knows about the name fraud.
Yeah.
If you don't know, just say. Okay, very quickly.
I do know of it. Like, I don't quite understand it, and then I wonder for myself, because I was born in Pakistan, I have a Pakistani birth certificate.
Okay. Oh, I don't know how that would work then, actually.
It's all global, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you might just be invisible to the system.
Well, Pakistan, because it's empire, part of empire.
All right. Yes.
Common law tradition.
Yeah, it might. To be honest, I don't know how that would work, to be honest. I'd have to look into that, yeah. So for those who don't know, okay, the name in all capital letters is not your name. Yeah, the name with a title, Mr., Mrs., Miss, right, is not your name. The trick is to get you to agree to that name, right, because that name they have control over. Yeah, and they can find that name, they can imprison that name, they can do whatever they like to that name. They can't do that to you unless you agree to be that name. So when they send you a letter, right, with Mr. David Murphy on, or whatever your name is, yeah, right, if you open that letter, you are either agreeing to be that name, or you're committing mail fraud by opening somebody else's mail. Does everybody get that now? Yeah? It's a trick. Okay, it's like the first shot in a battle, right? And if you fall for it, then they've got the first few points. Okay, so
you're either agreeing to be that person or mail fraud.
Mail fraud, yes, opening somebody else's mail, which is illegal.
You can prove it on the phone when a salesman phones you up and you know they're recording it.
Yeah.
If you don't admit to being Mr. Mark, and they ask you 6 times, they end up putting the phone down on you.
They can't go forward. They need you to agree to be that fake name. Yeah. Then they can put things on you because you've agreed to be that person. Yeah. So that this first question is basically getting rid of that assumption that you're saying, well, again, clean hands. I think I've made a mistake. I think I'm opening somebody else's mail. Could you just give me some proof that this was meant for me? You know, Dave of the House Murphy, and not to Mr. David Murphy, because I don't want to be opening somebody else's mail. Yeah, clean hands.
And of course they can never approve.
They can never do that. Yeah, so they'll always try to kind of deflect and stuff.
But I guess some poor junior member of staff is going to open this up and not have an understanding of common law. Are they trained in this? They have to be, won't they?
What they have is standard form letters, and you're going to see it. They'll send out standard form letters, and they might modify a paragraph or something, but it's standard form letters. They're going to try and trick you. Okay. Hopefully, I'll get to show how they trick you. Next one is no, I won't say the whole thing because it's the same for everyone. Yeah, proof that the living man known as Dave of the House Murphy granted you permission to access my personal data, or that utility company has the authority to access my personal data without my consent. Well, data protection means they can't use your data. You know, how did they get your data in the first place? That's against the law. Somebody passed them your information, right? And they're using your information illegally. Okay.
What data is that?
Your name, address, your details. Yeah.
Dave, the bit where it says myself, the living man, if you're a woman doing it, you put woman, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You haven't put man. Would you? My pronouns are. You know. So number 3. I'd like to see a copy of the lawful 2-party contract between myself and the utility company bearing my wet ink signature, obliging performance, or evidence which proves beyond a doubt that your company has the power to force me into contracting with you. Well, none of them are true. They can't force you into contract, and they won't have an actual contract. Okay. A copy of the properly executed novation agreement bearing wet ink signatures of all parties concerned, or details of the consideration provided for the new contract. Well, I've already explained they can't do either. Okay. Material evidence, not blah blah blah, that the utility company owns the gas or electricity that you allegedly intend to supply. They don't own it. They can't answer that question. Okay, so again, you ask for, this is standard for each conditional acceptance, you ask for response in affidavit format, so somebody's got to sign their name to it, yeah, to the response, and you've given them 7 days. Otherwise, it will be deemed by a tacit agreement, by your acquiescence that you agreed silently, that there is no lawful two-party contract or novation agreement between you and the utility company, and thus the utility company has no lawful basis upon which to make any demands. Okay? So that's the notice of conditional acceptance. You're just saying, give me this information, right, that you should be able to give me, right, because you're required by law to have this. Right? So,
And when you sign off from that,
yeah.
When you sign off, how do you sign your name at the bottom?
Okay, so
Semicolon and all that?
yeah, I have in this format, first name colon of the house. Yeah.
And that has to all be in lowercase?
I put it all in lowercase because that's.
And the name in capitals is the like a corporation?
Is a corporation, person, straw man, yes. Name in capitals, or it has a Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Okay. So that was the first letter. The second letter, I'm not going to go through all this, but it's basically saying on such and such a day, I gave you, served you a notice of conditional acceptance, and you have the tracking numbers, right? And you said, I asked for the following information, and you repeat the list of questions you asked. You were granted 7 days to respond. The deadline was that date. In a lawful attempt to solve this matter, I offer you the opportunity to cure this default by responding in substance and actually addressing the points raised. Yeah, and I'm going to give you 7 days. Right?
Do you wait sort of 7 days or 9 days? Because 2 days postage or something?
Well, I always say 7 days, but if you really want to be generous and you've got time, maybe give them 14 days. It's up to you.
We don't have weekends.
No, it's working days. Yeah.
They don't do it anyway, so.
They can't. They're not going to do it anyway, so it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Otherwise, it will be deemed by a tacit agreement, by your acquiescence that you agreed silently, that there is no lawful two-party contract or novation agreement between you and the utility company, and thus the utility company has no lawful basis upon which to make any demands. So that's the second letter. You give them another 7 days. If they don't respond in the 7 days, you go to the notice of default and estoppel by acquiescence. Estoppel is a legal term that means once you've reached an agreement, it stands. You can't go back on it. Okay? An acquiescence is silent agreement. Right? They're agreeing because they haven't been able to respond. They remain silent. Okay? So, dear Mr. Hugh Jas, on such and such a day I served. So you're literally going to go through and explain what's happened thus far. I served a notice of conditional acceptance. In a lawful attempt to solve the matter, I served a notice of default, an opportunity to cure, and so that you've served nothing upon me that can be considered a good faith, diligent attempt by you to respond to my notices within the stated deadlines. You are in dishonour, and I must advise that a default judgment is now in place. Okay, because they failed to respond. Yeah? Establishing a permanent irrevocable estoppel by acquiescence. That there is no lawful two-party contract or novation agreement or deed of assignment between you and the company, and the company has no lawful basis upon which to make any demands upon first name, last name. I do not require or wish your services, contract or equipment at this location. Any assumed or implied contract or agreement is hereby cancelled. Any consent you presume to have is withdrawn. You are also required to remove any and all references to Mr. So-so or first name and last name from your database. You're hereby notified that any subsequent attempts to pursue this matter will be considered an act of fraud, as you do not have a lawful two-party contract with myself signed by an authorised signatory on behalf of the company. See Section 44 of the Companies Act 2006. Got the date wrong. And Section 4, subsection 2 of the Fraud Act 2006. So that's it. Okay? Yes?
So at that point, could they take your meter away?
Well, they could try. but you don't have a contract with them. The meters aren't theirs; they're renting them. Okay, so we can go further from this, but this is the point where you can break away from them. Okay. Yes.
What about if you have a smart meter? Because I've just moved, and unfortunately, I have a smart meter there.
We're going to get to that in the second section after this.
Sorry,
yes.
Point. You've got all these names, huge, whatever, and fat, whatever. Who do we actually send the letters to?
You send it to the CEO.
The CEO?
Yeah, you can find out who the CEO. Just go online and find out. If you can also, if you can't find it just generally, you can go to the company's house records, either on Dun Bradstreet or company's house itself, and find their entry, and it will tell you who the CEO is.
Do you have things like to agent to recipient or whatever?
Well, you can do on the just under the notice. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Notice to principal is notice to agent. So, but you're going straight for the CEO.
Okay.
Yeah. So, case study.
Sorry. It's a time thing. That what happens if they send in the bailiff in the meantime before it completes?
Before it completes, well, you say to them, "I'm in dispute with the company." You've got, who are you?
It's in the litigation.
Yeah, who are you? Yeah, my beef is with the company. I don't know who the hell you are. Bugger off. But I'm going to show you how to deal with that later on. Okay. So case study 2, no agreement. All right. So again, I'll go through another letter. I'm afraid. Dear Mr. Billy Sarstead.
Who's getting stronger, isn't
Employ the best people.
It's come to my attention, my favourite phrase, it's come to my attention there is no legally enforceable contract between myself and the company. It appears that you've been doing business with me under presumption that there is an unwritten agreement between us. And as such, you've been able to unilaterally alter the terms and conditions and tariffs at will without my consent. See, there's no contract. If there was a contract, the terms and conditions would be set out and they couldn't be changed without your consent. But because there isn't really a contract, there's an assumed unwritten agreement, well, they can make changes as they see fit because there is no contract. But most of the muggles out there believe they're in a contract. Yes, because there's no contract, okay, that's why they can say, okay, from now on you're going to pay this much, right? And you weren't able to agree it, okay? If it's a contract, you'd have to agree it. They couldn't move without your agreement, but because it's just an agreement, an unwritten one, they can do what they like. Anyway, so I'm going to skip this paragraph because it's the name trick. Getting out the name trick. I've noticed the correspondence is to Mr. and so and so, okay? You know that now. Furthermore, it's become apparent that a utility company is just a billing company or a credit broker providing metering and billing service and not an actual energy supplier. Nonetheless, I'd be happy to continue to do business with a utility company on this basis, on the condition that you provide me the following proofs of claim. Proof that, okay, that's a name thing again. Material evidence or proof that the living man, the living man, known as so-and-so, granted you permission to access my personal data. Proof that your terms and conditions and tariffs apply to my real name, my man name, and not to the person or occupier or resident or any other person. A copy of the lawful two-party contract between myself bearing my wedding signature, obliging performance, or evidence that proves that your company has the power to force me into contracting with you. Material evidence that you actually own the gas or electricity you're supplying. So it's very similar to the last one, right? But
Dave, why waiting? Because we click on this something and Then it's all done on the internet. Why red ink? What's
Well,
the significance?
because the wet ink is you actually physically signing something,
But not clicking on a...
which is why you want to get away from that, because they put things on the internet so that they can get around that. They can just say, well, you agree to it. Okay? You need to have your actual signature to say, yes, I agree to do this. Okay? And this is a good point, actually. Trying to keep this off the internet, no emails, don't send these things by email. Force them to write letters to you, right? Because that leaves a paper trail, okay, that you can use against them, right? If you do it online, these things just disappear into the ether, okay? So again, this paragraph is very similar, except I say it will be deemed an agreement by your acquiescence that we are indeed doing business under an assumed unwritten agreement, and just like yourselves, I am able to unilaterally alter the terms and conditions and tariffs. Yeah? Pending a satisfactory resolution to this dispute, I am cancelling my direct debit arrangement and withholding payment until further notice. I eagerly wait your response. Right? So again, it's a clean hands approach. Right? You're saying, I don't think we've got a contract. And if you can't prove it, then we've just got an agreement, which I can make changes to, just like you're doing. Okay? So, to use this to renegotiate your agreement, so I said, first thing, cancel your direct debits, withhold payment until further notice, and send the 3 notices in order. Okay? So that notice I just read to you was the notice of conditional acceptance. It's the first letter. Again, you should know the process now. The second letter is just restating and then giving them another 7 days. And the last notice is, well, you've defaulted now, so now we have a summary judgment against you. Okay? Everyone get that? Everybody get that? Oh, for crying out loud. So, after the estoppel notice is served, then you can work out your new bill at the tariff that you set. So you could say, oh, I'm only going to pay £1 a unit. That seems fair, and then, when you can read your meter, right? You can send them your meter readings and then work out how much you're going to pay and send it to them. Or you can decide how much you're willing to pay a month. Okay? Tell them that and set up a standing order for it. And that's it. Standing order rather than direct debit, because a standing order is controlled by you. You set the amount, and every month that amount's going to go out. If you set up a direct debit, they can actually reach in and take out whatever they want. So you don't want to have a direct debit set up. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I know a couple of people who've already phoned up the utility companies because they've had silly bills, and they've said, I'll pay you £100 a month, and then I'll renegotiate it with you in 6 months, and that's what they've done. And because they've agreed to pay something, they're legal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is the same process I'm talking about, but in this case, you've got the upper hand here, right? In the case you're talking about, you're almost saying, well, please accept this, and if they say, well, no, we're not going to accept it, well, now what?
But they have to, don't they? Because by law, you're being lawful by offering something.
You are dealing with criminals here. You're dealing with criminals, right? And they can change their mind. They can just go and do something. You can go along doing this, and then all of a sudden you get bailiffs at the door, and you go, what's going on? There's so many cases of people saying, well, I thought I had an arrangement with them, and then they went back on it. Okay, this way you've got your judgment in place. Now you've got the law behind you to say, right, well, I gave them a chance to prove their case that there's an actual contract. Well, there isn't. So I'm going to make my changes to this agreement, and these are my terms now. And there's nothing they can do about it, right? But it's essentially the same thing, but you're just shifting the power onto your side. Okay. So, was there any more questions, by the way? No.
Sorry, do you want to go back to the previous screen? I didn't take a shot at that one.
What?
So you said you were going to give us copies of these.
Yeah. So, if you didn't hear, I was trying to get a booklet of this talk put together, but I kind of ran out of time. So, I'm going to try over the next couple of weeks, get a booklet and then get a booklet out to everyone who's turned up today. Okay. So you'll have all this information on hand.
I've done this in a crude way.
Yeah.
I've thrown in a few words like elevation and stuff like that, been totally ignored. I've set up a standing order and they just keep chasing me. They've ignored my letter and they email me, so I ignore that, and then they're writing saying you're in debit, which they don't know how much I'm in debit because I'm not giving them any meter readings. So
right.
That's where I'm at. So can I backtrack and say, hold on a minute, these are Dave's letters?
Okay. Again, you're going to have to, because this is a bit of a game, really. Okay. You're pretending you don't know what's going on. Okay. And saying, look, I don't know what's going on, but I just want proof that you're doing this, and I'm, just poor me. I'm just, trying to do the best thing.
Some more
right?
has come to my attention.
Yeah.
I have said the contract. I have said about innovation, but they're just ignoring the letters.
Well, okay,
so
just
but say you're ignoring the letters.
Remember, stay on target. Okay, if you ask them for something, again, think of it. Bloke just walks up to you and says, "You owe me 50 quid. Yeah. Prove it." No, you owe me 50 quid. Give me the money now, or I'm like, prove it. Yeah. I'll give it to you if you prove it to me. Yeah, so stay on target. So if you've kind of done your own thing and you haven't asked anything, you can restate your original questions or whatever, but add to it and clarify it a bit more, and use.
Your letters actually, they look better.
Yeah, so just then use bits of it and just bolster up what you said, but it's got to look like a continuation of what you've already asked for. Yeah, because again, it's a game, and you've got to play the part of the silly muggle. Okay. So I was going to have a quick word about alternative payment methods. Okay. If you feel you have to pay some things, but there are alternatives out there. Okay. So back to Lemon Tree. So as I said, the UK has been bankrupt for generations. Okay. But it's been allowed to continue, and I can't remember the type, chapter 51 I think it is called, where they're allowed to continue in business, right, while they're in a bankruptcy, okay, and to pay off its creditors, okay. But while you're in a bankruptcy, there's a rule that he who brings the liability must also bring the remedy. Because if there's no money, and they say, well, you owe me 50 quid, how are you going to pay? Because there's no money. So whoever says you owe me 50 quid has to give you some way of paying that 50 quid. Right? And they do that. But we haven't been taught about it. Okay? So if you look at a bill, so an electricity bill here, right, you've got the bill part. It tells you how much you're supposed to pay and what your meter reading and all that stuff. But then you've also got this bit they call the remittance slip. Okay? Doesn't that look like a cheque to you?
Yes.
Yeah? Notice it says bank gyro credit up there. It looks like a cheque because it is a cheque. Okay? It's a cheque. It is the remedy they give you. Right, because there's no money. They can you fill in the cheque and that will be essentially the money. That's going to set off this payment that you supposedly owe. I know it sounds confusing, but we're in a bankruptcy. There is no money. The money's gone. Okay, so they say it's a remittance slip. They use that word to make it sound like all it's there to do is to just to go along with your money and just to tell them that you're paying your account off or something. But the word remittance actually means something, okay? Because it's actually, here we go, here's the Black's Law Dictionary, right? Remittance, money sent by one person to another, either in specie, bill of exchange, cheque or otherwise. Yeah? Remittance is a type of money. Yeah? So they take your remittance and they set off your bill with that remittance, and they take, when you used to send a cheque, they take that cheque as an administration fee. So they're essentially double dipping. Yeah? So, and this isn't my process, because I was doing a process back in the day where it was really just delaying tactics. So this comes from a friend of mine called Paul Webster. His approach is to put a sticker 45 degrees across it with the words non-transferable on it. Also put 3 first-class postage stamps on the actual bill side, not on the tear-off side. You put 3 stamps on there and sign and date through them. That essentially pays what they call the stamp duty on the document. It literally makes that document yours because you paid the stamp duty on it. There's an act, I think it's the Stamp Duty Act of 1891 that you can look up, and it'll tell you how it's taking control and paying for that document to be yours. Okay. On the back, you make up another sticker that says, this bill of exchange is hereby transferred by endorsement to Eon or whoever for the payment at the site of the sum of an amount transferred by the person. There's the address, your national insurance number. Make sure you have non-commercial customer. And then you say endorsed by name imprinted and your signature and the date. And you put it on the back of the actual remittance and end it with a postage stamp signed through. Because that's remember I said that you become the creditor as because this is a bankruptcy, and now we are the credit in this system, right? And that your credit is based on your national insurance number. Your ID in this bankruptcy is this national insurance number, so they can use that to set off that debt. And in fact, if you do it this way, you're actually paying off the national debt. Because every time you pay with debt notes, you increase the debt. Yeah, because a £1 or a £10 note is a promise to pay, it's a debt. And you're paying a debt with a debt. So you increase the national debt every time you pay stuff off. We're supposed to be paying it off by setting off these things, which will get rid of the debt by setting it off. I know it's a bit confusing, but literally, I know it's confusing. And it's meant to be confusing. You're not meant to know this. Right? But our national debt creeps up because we're paying with debt notes. That all these notes say, I promise to pay the bearer. They're promises. Okay? And our national debt just keeps increasing when we keep using promises to pay.
So you put one stamp on them?
Yeah, you put a stamp again to take control of that. That's now your document, and you're instructing them to set off that amount using the remedy they gave you. Now, Paul Webster, who uses this, he says he's been doing this. He actually went to court and got them to, and had the guy from the energy company. He basically said, right, I'm going to get you on the stand, right, and you have to prove that I haven't paid you. And the guy from the energy company said, no, and he crossed out the warrant and ran out. And every time they try and call him in...
Why did they get on what basis did they get to the court in the first place if what you're doing works,
Because, again, we're in a system run by crooks, especially in the lower court, right? So they might take it to a higher court, like a county court, and get a district judge in or something, right? Who'll just go by what's been told to him, right? But if you bring in the fact that, look, I've paid, right? I know what this is all about, right? Let's get the guy from the energy company on the stand, right? That's it. That's game over. Right? And he says, first thing when he gets taken to court, he says to the energy guy, are you legally trained? And they say, no. Right, because I'm going to have you on the stand and I'm going to cross-examine you. And they go, oh, no, you're not. And they run out. That's it. This is his process. And I spoke to him last week. And he says, still haven't paid. And they won't touch me. Okay, so this...
After how long, After how long?
It's 4 years now. Yeah. So this is one way. Another way, on a similar vein, is a promissory note. Okay. Again, you creating a promissory note is also setting it off. Kind of, because they can use that promissory note. They can actually cash it. Any company that turns over more than, say, I think it's 2 million, can cash a promissory note. Okay. And as I said, I keep saying that these notes that we're passing around are just promissory notes. It says, I promise to pay the bearer on demand. Okay, so again, it's I've gone through this before. It's like £20 of what? What is £20? If you go to the Bank of England with your £20 note and say, I want my £20, please, that you're promising to give me, they'll give you 2 tens and kick you out. And not only that, they'll bolt the door behind you and sometimes call the police. Because this is information that they don't want out to the muggles, the general public. Because then the scam will collapse on itself.
It used to be £1 of silver, didn't it?
It used to be, yeah, it used to be £1 of silver. That's why it's £1 sterling, yeah? So yeah, you can write your own promissory notes, and here's one of mine, yeah? So it's got the amount there in numbers and letters. I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of. And here's an important note. Subsequent to the Bank of England having honoured their promise on their banknotes. So you're saying, because people come to me and said, well, what if they ask for the money? Now you're giving them a promissory note. What if they ask for the money? Well, that clears that one up. As soon as the Bank of England honours their promises, then I'll be in a position to honour mine. Yeah?
So once they give you £20 of silver for your £20 note?
Yeah, then I'll be able to give you, because at the moment there is no money. Okay? My promissory notes, I go a little different. I have space for 3 witnesses to sign. So when you sign your promissory note, you get 3 witnesses there to witness you signing it, and that gives it some power. Okay. Now there was a court case, and it was a Lord Justice Denning who said, "We have repeatedly said in this court that a bill of exchange or promissory note is to be treated as cash. It is to be honoured unless there is some good reason to the contrary." Okay. They can't not honour them because promissory notes are the basis of the monetary system, the currency in this country. So it has to be honoured. Okay. So this is court a case law that backs up your promissory note. So when you hand out a promissory note and say, "Whoa, well, I can't accept this," well, it's cash. Here's a case law that says it's cash. And by the way, according to the Bill of Exchange Act, if I offer you money for a debt, right, if I offer you cash for a debt and you refuse it, well, the debt's extinguished. Thank you very much. Okay, that's in the Bill of Exchange Act.
In shops that have gone cashless as well.
Sorry?
Would it work in shops that have gone cashless?
Probably not, because they've got the goods, and they can choose not to give it to you. Yeah.
If you've got a contract with you.
Yeah. Yes, that's again. I've got in my common law talk, I've got evidence of somebody who's paid off a mortgage with a promissory note. But that's a whole other thing. So when you use a promissory note or a remittance slip, so what happens several days later, you'll get a response from them. Yeah, and I think I'll zoom into this actually, and I'll zoom into this actually, show you. The response is, you know, they haven't been paid. You know, at the moment we've received no payment towards the electricity usage. We've received a completed gyro slip or promissory note, but that doesn't constitute payment. Well, that's quite correct, because there's no money, there can't be payment. Yeah, so technically they're not lying. Yeah, but there's something they don't do. Have a guess what they don't do. They've sent this letter saying you haven't paid, but what don't they do, do you think?
Call the police.
Call the police. They never return the remittance or the promissory note. They'll say, oh, we don't accept it, but they hold on to it. Yeah? So don't listen to what they say, look at what they do. Right? So look at the definition of offer and acceptance. If an offerer proffers property or services and the offeree, having a reasonable opportunity to return or refuse, exercises any ownership or rights over the property or keeps the benefit of any service, then the offer is accepted. So if they hold on to the promissory note or the remittance slip, they've accepted it. It's like, okay, if I owe you a tenner and I say, will you accept this Michael Jackson CD? And you grab hold of it, and a week later, can you come up to me and say, you still owe me a tenner? Well, no, because you've taken that Michael Jackson CD and accepted that for the debt. If I'd given you the CD and you go, well, I don't even like Michael Jackson, and you throw it back to me, well, then you haven't accepted it, have you? So the debt still stands. But if they hold on to it, they've accepted the offer. An acceptance is an agreement, either by express act or implication by conduct, to the terms of an offer, which we just saw has been accepted, so that a binding contract is formed. Yeah?
So you can all pay blank drawer credit slips in?
Yes, but you have to endorse them in the right way. What I was doing before, I was actually just filling them in as a cheque and sending them in, and they're refusing. But apparently, because that was my solution 10 years ago, and I haven't lived in a house since then. Yeah. So I've gone to Paul Webster, who's been doing this solidly, and he says no, the best way is to do the transferred by endorsement, which I just explained.
So how many people who are living in houses have successfully gone through this process without having to go to court?
It's difficult to say because not everyone is sort of shouting from the rooftops about it, right? And there are thousands of people doing these things. There's lots of groups of people actually going ahead. I mean, there's several here actually, but it's every council is going to approach it differently. They're going to try different ways, and then they collaborate and say, oh, we did it this way and we got rid of it. But it's a game of chess.
Have you been to court with somebody?
Over this? I've been to court myself.
Represented them? Or so you've represented yourself?
Yeah.
Obviously, when you were in a house?
When I was in the house, yeah. But that's quite a funny game actually. But
I have used this with PayPal without knowing this. I sold some digital goods over PayPal. Somebody paid with credit card and then took a charge back. So I never got any money.
Okay.
And then I said to PayPal, look, I've been defrauded. They said, you broke our terms and conditions, because I actually sold some bit. I was selling digital goods. You owe us the money. And I said to them, I don't owe you the money, show me the contract that I have with you. That was it.
And you didn't get anything?
I don't use PayPal anymore.
Well, again, what they're claiming is you broke the terms and conditions. So, and if you agree to their terms and conditions, then you're kind of bound by them.
Right,
okay?
But I said to them, where is the contract where I owe you money? Because it was in my account.
Right, but
they're not chasing me up. That's it.
Okay.
It's left because
Yeah.
they're sending me threatening letters and saying, listen, show me the contract. Show me the written contract.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So again, this is the muggles out there. are too scared to go up against anybody. You know, they don't like confrontation, okay? But because they don't know how it works, right? But armed with this knowledge, right? This is all about fear and getting rid of fear, right? Right. Most people here have literally gone through 2 years of cajoling and coercion and the most stressful pressure imaginable, and refused to get jabbed. Okay? That takes a lot to stand up to that. Right? Most people out there can't do that, couldn't do that. And it's the same for doing this. Right? There are people, when they see a bailiff at the door, they'll go, oh no, and they'll pay whatever, you know. Or if they get there's a clamp on their car, they'll go, oh no, I better pay. Right? But if you know what to do, if you can sort of stand in your power and go and not be worried about it. It's about getting rid of the fear. Okay? And hopefully, I'm telling you stuff that it will alleviate your fears when you come to do this. Right? But yeah, I'm going off track. Anyway. So, cancelling the agreement. Okay? So this is the other thing you can do. Once you've got the 3 letters in place, so you cancel the direct debit, withhold payment, send the free notice in order. Once you've got to the estoppel stage, right, then you can send a notice of termination. You can say, I no longer need your services, thank you very much, I'll be using another supplier. You can say what you like, right, but you're terminating their services. And now you can, once you've done that, now you've got the process in place with your agreement, your summary judgment, you can now apply it to the bank for your direct debit payments back. Because you've got no agreement, you've got no contract, right? You can go and say, say to the bank, we've been operating under a fraudulent agreement, there's no contract in place. Now they have to prove there is a contract, and if they can't, then you get all your money back. Yeah, I will put, when I do the booklet, I will put a template for the direct debit indemnity for you to use. That it's a clawback. They call it a clawback. But yeah, I'll include the little template for that as well.
So okay. Dave, if you cancel your contract, say with an energy company, I'm in a process of dispute since 8th of August. They haven't answered my questions. I've sent them £10 on that so-called bill thing, and I haven't managed to do it in the post office. It's kept them quiet, it's kept me off the penalised list, whatever, for further action. But I can end my contract now cleanly and pay the final bill. Would that then stop that reclaiming of direct debit for like the last 30 years? Or is it best to leave it to the 3 letters? Well,
again, it's always best that you've got something in place to actually nail them, right? Hold them to the law, right? Because if you've got the summary judgment, I mean, that's it. They can't prove their claim. There's no claim. Yeah. Okay. So when you do a direct debit clawback, there's a process where you're making a claim that they haven't performed in some way. They go to the company and say, they're making this claim. Can you prove that the claim's wrong? And if they can't, then they go, okay, then you can have your money.
So if I end my contract with them in writing next week, I've then ended my tacit agreement contract, basically.
Okay. I'd have to see what you've the process you've gone through, but we can talk about that later if you want. So at some later date. So once you've done that, this is when I would suggest you go to the next stage, which is changing your meters. Okay. How many people have actually done that yet? 1, 2. Okay. You've all. Okay.
Just sitting there looking at it.
Yeah, okay. So, again, cancel the direct debit arrangement, withhold payment, send the free notice in order, and again, send the termination notice after the estoppel, okay? get yourself a qualified gas engineer or electricity engineer to actually change the meters. Pack the old ones in the boxes the meters come in, okay? And get a gas safety check and then get the certificate, right? So if you get somebody to fit the meter, right, and he's doing it sort of a bit moody, he's an actual gas fitter, but he probably doesn't want to put his name to the fact he's changed it. Well, just get another fitter to come in and give it a safety check. He doesn't need to know who fitted the meter or anything. You just say, I want a safety check, okay? And once you've got the certificate, it's important because that's your defence against them trying to interfere with your meters or even come into your property, okay? And we'll get into that in a second. So either once you've done that, you can either instruct the utility company to come and retrieve their meter, yeah, or you can just wait until they send somebody round, okay? Because a couple of people have said that as soon as you alert them that they're taking the meter out, that's when they start descending upon you. But if you just wait for them to come to you, basically when they come to you, you say, well, sorry, your meters are there. You can take them. If you want to tell them beforehand, you can actually charge them for storage. You can say, your meters are here for collection. Right? If you don't collect them within a week, I'm going to start charging you so much a week for storage. Okay, but again, you run the risk of alerting them and them coming to descend upon you. One at a time. Go on.
Just hang on to them, and if they ask, well, they're not going to ask, are they? But if you've got them, it's not.
Yeah, if they come to your door, and they're saying, well, we're gonna change the meter. Want to change it to a prepaid meter? Well, you don't have to. Here are your meters.
Are they then allowed to go down my driveway and check my meter where it was when I've got a lock on it?
I'm coming to that bit. So.
Where do you get the new meters from? eBay.
Yeah. Aha. You can go on eBay, and get these meters, right? For a gas meter, you need a U6 or G4 domestic gas meter, right? If you're getting for electricity, it's got to be a single phase 100 amp electric meter. And look, you can see the price is around about 30 quid, okay? Wow. And you can go onto the Telegram groups, and you'll find people who will fit them for you. I think we've got.
Why do you need a meter?
Sorry,
Why do you need a meter?
Why do you need a meter? Right.
If you believe that they're not supplying you anything of value, then why should you meter it?
Right. Well, first of all, you've got to be able to use the power. Yeah.
And but, I mean, all the meters, the gas meter, just.
Sure, it goes through.
The pressure in the gas main to a pressure that you can use. So a simple pressure proportioning device would do it.
Well, here's the thing. One of the stipulations is actually supplying the numbers to the national grid, and you can do that anyway. You can just send a note to the national grid. But one of the things I'm trying to do, I'm in the process of doing, is.
You might even get an invite to the next WF meeting.
Yeah, I could be. Me standing out with Klaus Schwab, hobnobbing with Schwab, baby, Right, so once you've got your meter fitted, by the way, sorry, the gas safety check, I mentioned that before, it's important to get the gas safety check because the only basis by which a utility company can come into your house, right, is based on health and safety. They try and get the warrant of entry, right, because they want to change it to prepaid meter, but they can't. The only basis is on health and safety. So if you've got a safety check, oh no, sorry, that's it.
How often do you have to go?
Once a year.
That's a yearly thing of about what, 60, 70 quid?
Well, I think it's less than that. Is it 60?
50.
Okay.
60. Oh yeah, in Brighton it's 60.
Yeah. So, but it's, you know, if you're worried about this, then it's always good to have it, right? But you can go without it, but it just adds a bit of pressure to you.
Right. Gives
Right.
you a bit.
So yes, the Gas Act 1986 basically says that it has to be genuinely because of health and safety, and if there's any other dispute, they can't do it for any other dispute, and legitimate contract dispute is included. Yeah, so that was the basis of you not paying. It's a contract dispute. So once you've got your meter in place, it's time to defend your meter. Okay, and I'll put that on there because again, your house is where you live is your castle, and there's something called castle doctrine, which means that you know, an Englishman's home is his castle. So if somebody tries to trespass on your property, you have the common law right to defend your house, your property, and yourself with using reasonable force. Yeah, up to and including deadly force if necessary. Yeah. So I was telling people I was going to.
Hasn't worked of late, has it?
Sorry?
Hasn't worked of late. Don't you remember that farmer who kept getting attacked and he was done? It was quite a while back, and he
Well, we've got a court case, and this is on the bottom of one of my notices now. There's a court case that happened this year, Regina versus Robert White, okay, where he was being evicted and he barricaded his house, and literally the police broke into a kitchen window, essentially kitchen door window thingy, and broke in, tased the guy, and beat him up, and then charged him with assault. Right? And the judge said that it doesn't matter that this was a police officer who came in; he was an unwelcome visitor, an unwelcome intruder. Okay, and Mr. White had the right to remove him with reasonable force.
It's the luck of the draw of the judge then.
No, but this is case law now. So you've got case law on your side, and I'll show you. You've got lots of case law on your side. So first thing, don't panic. Yeah, you've got your new meters, right? They can't cut you off. They can't cut you off because again, National Grid owns the infrastructure. They're not National Grid, nor are they the energy supplier. So they've got no basis on which to cut you off. Okay, all they can do is get around it by fitting a prepaid meter. Yeah, but if you've changed your meters, they can't touch yours because they're your property. Yeah, and I would suggest you secure your property with putting your own enclosure around them. Okay. Or build a brick wall if it's near the floor. Build a brick enclosure around it with a little gate on it and a big padlock or whatever. Secure it. So if it's on the outside of your house, make sure you can secure it. That they can't just come along and touch it. Yeah. Also, have one of these. Everybody should have one of these. I should be able to go around to your house and see this outside your house. It's a notice of removal of implied right of access. Yeah. Most of these people who come to your door are assuming that you're letting them in. The fact that you have a front door or you've got a gate on to your garden, yeah, is an implying that you're letting them in because you've got a gate. If you open the door to them, that's implying you're letting them in. Yeah.
I've got one of these in my front window, but it's not really visible from the road.
Okay.
Is that okay? Or?
Make it as visible as possible, and if you've got a front gate, put it there. Yeah. Have it laminated and put it out there before they can even get on your property. Yeah. It will say things like any access to your property shall be by strict invitation only and be subject to terms and conditions available on request. Any permission that you may or you believe you have from me is withdrawn. If you believe you have power of attorney to act on my behalf, you're hereby fired. Any consent that you believe you have, tacit or otherwise, is hereby withdrawn. Right? So this bit here is this bit of case law. Case law is placing such a notice is akin to a closed door and prevents a bailiff or anyone else entering the garden or driveway. Yeah? It is not contempt to assault a bailiff or anyone else climbing over a locked gate after being refused entry. Yeah? If a bailiff or anyone else enters by force, he's there unlawfully, and you can treat them as a trespasser. Yeah?
What about postman and the bin?
I'm thinking about this.
Yeah, but here you're saying who this. Oh, sorry. Here you're saying who this is for. Yeah, this whole section says, it's any employee, principal agent, corporate body, and police officer or enforcement agent. All these things. Yeah, you can specify who it means. Yeah.
So you exclude the people you.
Yeah, anything you just include who you don't want to be allowed on your property. Yeah. So you make sure you have one of these. This is literally your best defence. At the bottom here also, you say if you choose to violate this notice, then you agree to pay £10,000, and you're hereby notified that castle doctrine shall be invoked, and reasonable force up to including deadly force will be used to defend his home and its inhabitants. Yeah.
And then you shoot them.
Then you shoot them. No. Baseball bat. So, but the point is. Yeah. And bury them. Yeah. So this is your greatest defence. Yeah. You can also have copies to give to them if they actually turn up, or you can send a copy of that to the company to make sure they know. Yeah. But you've got to also prepare to be visited. Yeah. They will try because again they think you're a muggle who maybe got something off the internet but don't know what you're using, and those muggles will cave under the first bit of pressure. Okay. So if they turn up to your house saying that they've got a warrant, take a look at it. Yeah. If it's not signed with a wet ink signature, right, and a clearly printed name of a judge or a justice of the peace, then it's a piece of paper. It's worthless. Okay. And again, any warrant has to be based on health and safety. So if you've got your gas safety check or your safety certificate, then that nullifies the whole thing. Okay. So again, Companies Act 2006, Section 44 says it needs to be signed and sealed. Yeah. The Criminal Procedure Rules 2010, Rule 18.2, all warrants must be signed. Okay. So if it's not signed, then it's not a warrant. Okay? And that means that whoever's saying that this is a court warrant is now liable for the County Courts Act 1984, Section 135, which says falsely pretending to act under the authority of a court carries a 7-year prison sentence. Yeah? So that really sort of shuts them down straight away. If you again, when I give the Peace Constable talk, I say there's like a handful of statutes that you just need to know off by heart. And if you can just reel it off, you become terrifying. Yeah? And you just know, because I spoke to an ex-copper and he said to me, when they come across somebody who knows what they're talking about, they want to get rid of them as soon as they can because they're terrified. Yeah. So the point is, all of this, they need your consent. Yeah? To enter your house, to do anything, they need your consent. Don't give it to them. Okay?
Sorry, Dave, what if there is a wetting?
There won't be. There will never be. Because the whole thing's fraud. Yeah, I went through all the fraud that they're doing, right? So they can't actually get a real judge to actually sign it because it'll be fraud. Yeah.
But the judges, most of the judges in this country are corrupt.
Yes, so but they're smart enough to know not to sign their name to anything that will incriminate them. Yeah? So that's why they'll never sign. There'll never be a signature for a judge for council tax or these gas things, because they're all based on fraud. Yeah. So if the police are in attendance, because sometimes you call the police and then the police will help them against you. Yeah. But again, knowing a bit about how the police work, the police have only got one jurisdiction they can act in, and that's criminal. But debts are civil. They have no jurisdiction whatsoever. Right? They can't come along and say, oh, you've got to do it. You've got to pay up. No, they can't be involved. Okay. When it suits them, they'll say, oh, this is a civil matter and I can't get involved. But here, if they help the bailiff and the bailiff gets some money, the police get a cut of it. So there's a little incentive for them to do it. But if you can face them down, right? Because there is some legislation that helps you in this case, right? So helping a utility company is actually an abusive position by a police constable, right? To cause somebody to suffer a loss for the benefit of a third party. That is Section 26 of the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015. Okay. 14 years in prison for the police officer if he's convicted of it. Yeah. Again, if you know this off by heart and you can just reel it off, terrifying. You put the policeman back in, right? All his duty is to stop a breach of the peace. That's it. Yeah. So this is something the police always often say. Well, I'm satisfied that this warrant is real. Yeah, it's valid. You can say something like this: your satisfaction is irrelevant, constable. You're not qualified to make that legal determination. What are your legal qualifications? You're not practicing law without a licence, are you? It is also an offence to help this man in a civil matter. It's an abusive position according to the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015. Yeah, Section 26. I believe it carries a 14-year prison sentence. Are you sure you want to be doing that? They back off pretty quickly. Yeah? So now you've nullified the police. Okay? The bailiff has got no power, the police have got no power against you. Right? As long as you don't cave, you hold them off indefinitely. Yeah? They might come round once or twice, but they'll soon get the message and they'll stop coming round. Okay? So you've got lots and lots of case law to back you up. Yeah? So let's just say some things like debtors may remove implied right of access by telling them to leave. So just saying you can't come in, leave this property, yeah, is just the same as having a notice up. Yeah. Again, a lot of people are too afraid to stand up to themselves against, like, sometimes you've got three big blokes in front of you, and maybe a copper as well. That's enough to intimidate most people. Yeah. Again, it's a spiritual battle you're dealing with here, right? And they know how to manipulate your consciousness. They know how to frighten you. Okay. So as I said, there are lots of case law. Bailiffs cannot force their way into private dwelling. A debtor can use equal amount of force to resist the bailiff. Yeah. Also wrongful would be an attempt at forcible entry despite resistance. They can't force their way in. Yeah, it has to be a consensual thing. Bailiffs cannot apply force to a door to gain entry. If he does, he's not in the execution of his duty. When I say bailiff, it also applies to energy people. Yeah. So that's an interesting one. Okay, I think this next one. This is the one I was telling you about, Robert White, Regina versus Robert White. That happened this year. Okay, it just says about the police sergeant, he's an unwelcome intruder. So if a debtor strikes a bailiff over the head with a full milk bottle after making forced entry, the debtor is not guilty of assault because the bailiff was there illegally. You've got all this on your side. Yeah.
What happened with the Robert White one to the policeman?
What happened to the policeman afterwards? Nothing. Because the policeman, yeah, we're We're in a criminal system. It's not.
The guy in the place, tasered him.
They tasered him and punched him, yeah, and then charged him with assault. Yeah. So this is you've got to know by now that we are in a totally criminal system.
But they're trying to pass new legislation at the moment that allows the police to do whatever they like with no recourse.
But that again, legislation isn't law.
Yeah,
I know, but it will work on you if you believe it. Yeah, you've got law on your side. Yeah, and they can't get rid of this. You've got law on your side. Legislation out the window.
The WEF Tory government are bringing in a bill that would prevent judges from overriding statute.
Yeah.
How would this play out? And I know one of the things that the WF want
Overriding statute. What do you mean?
Well, overriding that judges can't make decisions that contradict what the government has decided. It effectively gets rid of that judiciary.
It doesn't matter because we have something called the Bill of Rights Act 1689.
Hasn't that been repealed?
No, it can't. They can't repeal it. It's a constitutional statute. That was upheld in a case called Faubourn versus Sunderland City. Yeah, there are ordinary statutes and there are constitutional statutes, and constitutional statutes cannot be repealed or impliedly repealed. And in Bill of Rights 1689, it says, right, no one can be fined or have their property taken from them, without going through a court of law. So all these on-the-spot fines, they're illegal and unlawful. Right? But we don't know, so they can get away with it. They can't. The government can't overwrite that because it's a constitutional statute.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is. It is.
I know with the exemption stuff about having to get a medical exemption, which I tried to do through my GP, and you refused. But the actual wording of the law is clinical exemption, which means I have the right to say no because I say so.
Yes, because this is what I'm trying to get across to people. All of this is consensual. You've got to consent to it, right? Because there's always a way out of it, but you have to consent. You've got to look at it and go, there's no hope. I can't do anything, and then you give in, right? But because most people will just give in. But you who stand up and say, no, let's find a way out of this. Yeah, you find when you stand up, well, actually, just by me standing up, I've got out of it. Right? Which is what we've done throughout this whole coronavirus stuff. Yeah? They've said, you can't fly anywhere. But people went to go and fly and they flew. Yeah? You can't leave your house. People left their house, nothing happened. It's all illusion. This is all illusion, right? To create fear. Don't give in to the fear. Laugh at this stuff because it is laughable.
It might be an idea when someone comes and threatens you and say, I haven't been vaxxed. I stand up to this shit. I haven't been vaccinated. I stand up to this shit.
Then give them a hug.
So the last bit's case law I'll tell you. Again, this will be in the booklet when I get it out there. These are interesting. So if a police officer arrests a debtor after throwing a bailiff off the premises who has refused a request to leave, the officer is guilty of false arrest. So if you say to the guy, right, get off my property or else I'm going to throw you off. The guy goes, you're not going to do that. And you go, right, get out. And then the policeman arrests you. Well, now you've got this case law to say that now he's guilty of false arrest. And you can go after him. Okay? A police officer must arrest the bailiff for breach of the peace if he places the debtor in fear of violence or harm, or if that offence is made in the presence of that officer. So, if there's a copper there...
Many do need presence.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be violent if it's just bailiffs made in the presence of an officer?
Well, if you feel like if there's a copper there, and that bailiff is threatening you in some way, and you feel like you're, in fear of violence or harm, he has to arrest that bailiff for breach of the peace.
Right.
Yeah?
Could it be financial harm as well?
No, well, no. No, that's not something you can do right in front of you. Like, well, maybe if he rips the tenors out of your hand, perhaps, I don't know. But no, if he threatens you and you feel like you're in danger, okay, the copper has to act, and that's the case law for it. Yeah.
Will your book that include this?
Yes, but the point is, if this goes to court, there's nothing the judge can do because the case law says very specifically. Yeah. So that's the power of this case law.
Can the bailiffs push past you at the door?
No.
You know that thing about getting their foot in the door and then...
There's actually case law, and if it's not on here, I'll include it. There's case law that says they can't even put the foot in the door. Okay? It's just that they've got used to being able to do that because the muggles let them do it.
Because that was the way, because isn't that the consenting? If you accidentally, you open the door, and they're waiting for you to open the door, and that's the moment they put a foot in, and then they go to argue, well, you open the door, so I stepped in.
Yeah.
That's how they were doing that one.
Right. But again, if you're armed with the case law, right, and sometimes it's good to just print it out and hand it to them, right, and say, you better read through that because if you violate any of these things, I'm going after you. Yeah. So, any questions on this section?
If you have a bailiff come to your door, though, you don't have to open the door, do you?
Don't have to. No.
And it's better not to. Just
Yeah.
go upstairs or something.
Yeah, just.
What I've seen happen 3 times in personal experience, unfortunately, in the last 4 months is when bailiffs comes to the door, they knock to see if you're there. If you don't answer, they assume you're not there, then they break in.
Oh.
And if you capture that on video, which I've done, you've got good evidence.
You've got.
So after they're trying to slip the lock, and this little credit card thing comes in, then you can say, open and film them doing it.
Didn't that happen to you?
It did. They actually opened the door because the thing is, okay, can I tell the story?
Yeah, it's up to you.
My mom is my neighbor, right? And she wasn't home, and they were after the meter for her house. And I came out of my flat, and he tried to open it with the credit card. And the funny thing, I thought he was bluffing, so I just stood there. I phoned Dave, and I'm like, oh my God, Dave, they're like trying to get it to my mom's flat. And he kept saying God, what did you say, Dave? Because I forgot. You were saying you were
I can't remember.
me out here, Dave.
Possession.
Yeah. You know what he's just saying now. So he's saying it over the phone, and there's 3 of them standing there, right? And 3 of them came. And he opened the door, and I kind of like in disbelief pushed him, closed the door, and get out of here. They went, and I said, first of all, I said to them the wedding thing, and then I said about the they left for 40 minutes. They went downstairs. They Googled this thing. Dave came in the meantime. But yeah, I got rid of them. But it was intense.
Well, I've got to say though, when I turned up, I literally came and the guy was at the door. He saw me coming. He ran away. He ran off his car. His mate picked him up in a van. Right, and because there was cars either side of the road, they couldn't go very fast. So I chased up the road after him, and the guy jumped out the van, and he was trying to get into his car, looking back, and he got into his van and drove off. Right, they were just terrified that
it's
somebody.
Doable. Please stand up. It's doable. And that notice on the board. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, it works.
So they can't come in an open window. As
No,
I'm led to believe in the
there's case law for that as well.
Right.
And as under the unusual ways of entry, unusual routes of entry, they can't use them.
So they used to try and say that if your window's open, they can gain entry that way, and that's lawful. But it's
No, it's not.
right.
It's known as an unusual route of entry. Right. So, just a quick one on water companies. Yeah. So this is based on something I did for you as well. So we were lucky in getting hold of a document from Essex and Suffolk Water detailing all the stuff they put in the water. Yeah? The interesting one there is hexafluorosilicic acid, which is fluoride. Yeah? But note what it says, requested by Public Health England. Which means if they're requested Essex and Suffolk Water to put it in, they've requested all the companies to put it in.
I wrote to our water supplier based on that. I didn't mention that, and I asked them for proof that what's going in, that this is not going in. They wrote back to me to say categorically, we do not put any fluoride in the water. They totally lied, absolutely, and they tried to deflect away from Public Health England.
Yeah.
So it's going in, but they're using the excuse for this. Well, we're not putting it in, so it's going in somewhere else.
Well, what happened, if I don't mind me talking about it, Suze, what happened to Suze is that she got a letter from them saying, oh, we've given you all the details of what we put in, go to this link and you'll be able to see it. But the link didn't work. But I found the actual link and we went and looking at it, they just showed you the companies and their products that they put in the water. So there were no ingredients, just product names. So they got around it that way as well. Yeah. Okay.
Right, Dave. Sorry. So we've got fluoride in our water here.
I'm saying if they're Public Health England, right, have asked Essex and Suffolk, right, to put it in, they're not just going to say, you know what, we hate those people in Essex and Suffolk. Yeah, we're going to put. No, they've said it to all of them. They hate all of us. Yeah. So it's a good bet that this is every water company is putting all these things in, or at least the ones that are requested by Public Health.
I've noticed this just in the last month alone, the last 3 weeks, that the aroma that's coming out of the cold water tap now is just very similar to what you'd expect in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
It's really, really strong.
I think they're ramping up a lot of the poisons in our environment, especially the food as well.
Drink distilled water as well, because if you're not consuming those things, you run a bath and you're like, Jesus, what's that?
Yeah. Yep.
When did this come up? Because I'm going to Southern Water, I think, on the 21st, and I'd like to bring that.
Okay. I'll give you the document. Just remind me, and I'll send you the whole document. Okay.
This thing. Sorry, just one thing. Southern Water we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They do the drinking water, the tap water, and
Yep.
also they deal with the wastewater.
Yep.
I've got a similar email like you said. They have put a link over there to say to me,
sorry.
go to that link, and from that link you will know what is being added to the water.
Yeah.
They said they don't do anything extra. They just do the ingredients which is recommended to purify and clean the water for the tap water.
Mm-hmm.
For the wastewater, they were sending into the sea.
Yeah, that's why I put this on here, because there's an actual map you can go and see where they're showing where the waste is being pumped into the sea.
They said they don't deal, Southern Water doesn't deal with the wastewater. That's what they said to me in the email.
Oh, okay.
They said they have sent it to the people or the company who deals with the wastewater, and they will get back to me. That's what they said.
Okay, right. But you're not paying this other company, you're paying them. Yeah. So that won't wash either.
They should be able to answer that.
They should. They won't, because they don't want you to know what's in the water. They don't want you to know that they're pumping raw shit into the sea. Yeah.
They have said that I'm paying for this process of management of wastewater, as they say, management of wastewater.
Yeah.
So since there is evidence that you are not doing it, can I get all that money back that I've paid for it?
Well, yeah, that's something I was actually going to add to this next bit, actually. But that's something you could do.
Yeah, they had a letter or something which said a kind of apology for what has been happening. So I think we've got enough evidence.
Yeah, you can actually say, I'm not paying this amount because of your failure to properly dispose of the wastewater. Yeah, I didn't add that to your letter, but we should have done. But here's again a clean hands way of approaching this. Okay, so dear Mr. Billy Sugger, It's come to my attention that there is no lawful contract between myself. We know this is the name bit again. The company is a for-profit company, and there is for there to be an obligation upon me, there would have to be a legally enforceable contract between us. So this is asking about the two-party contract, right? Please provide the exact section and subsection of the Water Industry Act that creates an obligation upon me to pay this charge. There isn't anything. There isn't anything in the Act that says you have to pay them. Please provide material evidence that my domicile is a dwelling, and these two legal terms are synonymous. Well, it turns out, if you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, a dwelling is what they say that you live in, but if you look up the word domicile, that says that's the place that you normally reside, and dwelling and domicile are not synonymous. Okay? What they're doing is they're charging you as a commercial enterprise. They're saying that you're a commercial residence. Okay? So, there's domestic and non-domestic. Sorry?
What does dwelling mean?
I can't remember. I was gonna. You just reminded me that I should have put the Black's Law Dictionary references in there, but I'm just doing this from memory. But it just said that domicile means you're the place you normally reside, right? And it's not synonymous with dwelling. So
if you live where you run your practice, as I do, I've got a retreat centre, but I live there as well.
So it's a commercial.
Well, both things happening.
Okay, that leaves you in a bit of a tricky position because you're now non-domestic as well.
No, but I don't pay council tax, but it's down to two different council tax, even though it's in the same place.
Okay.
So the main houses are separate down here. The outbuildings are taxed separately.
Oh, okay. I'd have to look into that specifically, actually. But under normal circumstances, your house isn't also a non-domestic property, right? Which is what a dwelling is. But a domicile, okay, is the place you normally live, and the two aren't synonymous. So it means that that's how they're tricking us. Please provide a detailed list of the chemicals added to our drinking water. After some of my own research and after also witnessing with my own eyes the diabolical amounts of and type of residue left behind after distilling the water, I find it wholly unacceptable that this water should be paid for or even given away for free. I have found that the chemicals used in the water treatment process are harmful to the human body. According to the information provided by Essex and Suffolk Water, enclosed, it is very likely that the water you provide contains, among other things, potassium chloride, hexafluorosilicic acid, and aluminium sulfate. Yeah, and you can, if you want to read what it does, nasty stuff. Yeah. Unless you provide me with a detailed list, it will be assumed that your company uses the same additives. And I will not be impressed if you claim that you only use trace amounts, as the effects of many of the listed toxins are cumulative. In order to make your chemically laden product safe to drink, I put it through a process of distillation, carbon filtration, and the addition of hydrogen peroxide. Nonetheless, I'd be happy to pay you for your water meter readings of your chemically laden water on the condition that you provide me with the requested information and that you accept my charges for post-delivery treatment, which total £450 per month. So you charge them for cleaning up their shitty water. Yeah? I'll grant you 7 days, blah, blah, blah. If you fail to provide this information, it will be deemed to mean that your additives, a list of additives is similar, if not the same, as provided by Essex Water. If you send me any further bills, it will be deemed to mean that you accept my post-delivery treatment charges. So again, clean hands, okay? You're saying, I think this shit is in my water, right? I have to pay to clean this up before I can drink it.
And what happens when they ignore you? You get a letter from Warcraft.
you start charging them. Well, forget Moorcroft. You're in a dispute with the company. I don't care who you are. Again, debt collectors have no power whatsoever unless you give it to
But
them.
then they sold you your debt, in effect.
They didn't sell it.
They didn't, they just passed something.
No, the debt collector goes, can I buy this one? Because we think we can bully this person into paying. Yeah, they've got no power whatsoever. But somebody saying?
I was going to say I had an email just yesterday saying that this was my bill for the water, having sent that letter.
Well, don't listen to emails.
No, I don't even open them up. I just sort of read the heading and that's it. So I can actually send them an invoice for £450.
Well, I'd say, because I'd ignore the emails anyway, right? And you can actually, if you want to, if you can reply to it and say, I'm not accepting emails, but if you want to communicate with me, take note of of my previous letter. Yeah, I charge, I charge this much for post-delivery treatment.
Dave, the minute though you say I'm not accepting an email, then you're kind of gone into a bit of a...
I know. But
so I just ignore them.
Yeah, don't even open it, because sometimes they can see if you've opened them. Yeah. 45 minutes. Wow. Okay. So going to council tax. Okay. So the first thing to remember about the council is that they are a business. They are a for-profit business doing business for money. They're actually,
just for the sense, please, can you just flick that first picture so I know what slide I'm on? Thank you.
Oh yes, so me too.
Great.
Okay. I will get this thing out to you at some point. Okay. Right, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave,
Yes.
sorry, will you get us a booklet about all this?
Yes. That's what I'll do. Yes.
So,
Yes. Sir.
so we don't need to take pictures.
No. I will put this all together. Calm it. Yeah. So first thing to know that they're a business operating for profit. Okay. Now there's something called the Clearfield Doctrine. Okay. It comes from this case, Clearfield Trust versus United States. When the state or government enters into commercial business, it abandons its sovereign capacity and is to be treated like any other corporation. Okay? So the council is operating commercially. So Clearfield Doctrine applies. Okay? They're to be treated like any other corporation. All right? So they always put this out every year. This is how we pay out your council tax, and it also includes this pie chart. Yeah? The pie chart, interestingly, basically says 100% of the money is being spent this way. Yeah, that's how the pie chart works. Right? It's telling you all the money is represented in that pie chart, and this is where it's going. Okay. Problem is, we found out that a lot of this money, I think it's like 25% of your council tax, is going to the council workers' pension fund. It's a massive pension fund, and it's like gold plated and gives them a nice golden handshake when they leave. Yeah, and we're paying for that. Do you remember agreeing to that at all? It's actually not in their breakdown either. Yeah. Interesting, okay? And here's the proof. It was reported in the newspaper, okay? Also, there was this news story, and I'm going to zoom in on it, okay? So the heading is UK pension funds and the shameful use of cluster bombs in Yemen, okay? So if you zoom in on it, it says, it is therefore possible that those managing such investments are party to a criminal offence. And many more of us are implicated because, in the case of pension funds controlled by local authorities, the investments are made from council tax revenues. So it is in the West Midlands that we council taxpayers, to our shame, contribute about 25 pence each to the work of firms like Textron. Textron is an offshore company that makes cluster bombs, okay? Because it's illegal to make them in this country. So they offshore it so they can get around it. This is all it takes to incinerate a child in Yemen. And they're using these cluster bombs to commit all sorts of atrocities in Yemen, okay? I'll get back to this, right? Remember those two news stories. So one of the things you can do, right, you can actually ask them for a true bill. Right? They send you what they call a council tax bill, but it's not actually a bill. Right? If you look closely, it actually doesn't tell you very much. Okay? But if you go to a restaurant, right, so you order a meal, and at the end of it, they come and they give you a bill. And on that bill are all the things you've paid for to eat, or you're going to pay for to eat, yeah? So if you find on that bill something you didn't have or you didn't agree to, would you pay it? No. They will not give you a true bill because that bill would show things that you wouldn't agree to pay for. Okay, so they're not going to give you a true bill, right? Because it would actually provide evidence of the fraud. So your council tax bill is just basically a deceptive offer to contract, okay? And it's actually an act of extortion, okay? Now I go into it in a great deal of detail in my common law talk, but there are things like this Act, Local Government Act 1888. It actually says that all duties and liabilities of the inhabitants of a county shall become and be duties and liabilities of the council of such a county. So who's liable to pay council tax?
The council.
The council. It's there in this Act. It hasn't been repealed. It's right there. Yeah. So you're off the hook for paying council tax because they have to pay it. Right?
Can you actually write in the letter stating in the Act 1888 it says that local council is responsible for paying council tax?
Yes. This is I'm giving you things that you can literally throw in a conditional acceptance. Yeah. Now prove to me that I have a liability when a local government Act of 1888 says that you have the liability. So you put.
Come back and say that they've now introduced another act in the 80s that this is what they do.
Well, they can't because they'd have to repeal this one because the older one has precedence. Yeah, but this is still in effect. Okay, so here's a notice of conditional acceptance. Dear Mr. Willie Sanker, in the matter of your claim for council tax arrears, it has come to my attention that there is no obligation incumbent upon me to pay council tax, and I've been mistakenly paying you in error. Furthermore, I've become aware that monies raised by council tax go in part towards military operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia and Yemen. I've reasonable cause to suspect that crimes against humanity, or the use of cluster bombs is a crime against humanity, war crimes and or terrorism are or may be being committed by HM government and HM armed forces, as defined in Articles 6, 7 and 8 of the International Criminal Court Act 2001. Therefore, if I knowingly continue to contribute to council tax, then I will be guilty of committing a crime by aiding and abetting acts of terrorism, according to the Terrorism Act 2000. Yeah? So, by paying council tax, you're contributing to these war crimes, and that's an offence. So you're basically saying, right, in light of this information, I'll be happy to continue paying council tax and settle any arrears due, conditional upon the following. That you demonstrate there's a contract, which there isn't, that you can demonstrate manifestation of intent by signature on that contract, which there won't be, terms and conditions of the contracts are lawful, that council tax is lawful, that the council has given me full disclosure of the services being offered and that these have been accepted by me. That's just like the bill in your restaurant, yeah? That you can categorically prove, and this is the key one, categorically prove that no monies raised by council tax go to fund the HM Armed Forces or any military operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia or Yemen. They can't prove that because it's...
Send this to them. Could you just put one point there?
You could.
Could you just say the last one? Do you
Yes.
know, just to make a really...
Or you can add in the Local Government Act, or you can... I've got some data protection questions you can throw in there, yeah? Saying, well, you know, for what purpose has the council been accessing, processing and storing my data, yeah? Provide me proof of explicit consent to access and store and hold and share my data, yeah? Because...
And they never replied back to me about under the Freedom of Information Act. I asked for information, didn't say anything. They just sent this strawberry letter. Oh, statutory duty to pay council tax. Ooh. That was the mentality of the person who wrote it. Didn't answer any of the questions.
Well, you can actually go after them because it is a legal duty for them to do that, to answer those.
Write another letter.
Yeah, you can actually go after them actually for it. So all these things, right? You can actually add into your questions, right? That they don't want to answer because as soon as they answer them, they're now liable. Okay. Also, some legal questions. Yeah. Asking for the financial accounts, right? Because you can ask them because they're purporting to be an authority, a public authority. Yeah. So they must be transparent. So you can ask for, you know, a full breakdown and reports of where their money is coming in and going out. Yeah. Which again, they don't want to give you. They don't want to give you this information. Yeah. So clarify which law is used to make demands. If it's Local Government Finance Act, please provide evidence that our home is a commercial property and not a domestic dwelling. Okay, I should put not dwelling, domicile. Yeah, that was my mistake. I'll correct that. But yes, so they are levying council tax on commercial properties. There's a lot of trickery. They're using words like hereditament, which nobody knows. It's a legal term, but it means that the property is mixed sort of home and business. So they're taxing the business essentially, right?
No, they give you two council tax.
Sorry?
They give you two council tax.
Okay. Well.
The same dwelling.
Right, well then they're trying to get two bites of the same apple, yeah. So yes, please provide details of our consent to the Local Government Finance Act and a copy of the proclamation for this act. So these are just this is just a set of questions you can throw into that notice of conditional acceptance, okay? Because none of them are going to get answered, okay? Eventually, you might get the summons. Okay? So yes, you might get the summons, but I'm going to play an audio from somebody actually phoning up a court. They got a summons. They got a summons from what looked like from the court. So they phoned up the court to see, you know, get some information about this summons.
Good afternoon. You're speaking to... How can I help?
Oh, hi there. Good afternoon. I was after the listing officer for Magistrates Court.
There's no listing officer in Magistrates.
Is there not?
What was you after?
I thought there was
always
a listing officer. I was trying to get a record of a hearing that took place.
Yep. When did the hearing take place? Are you trying to get the results? What exactly are you after?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the case file and the notes. It was
okay.
It was.
Have you emailed the court?
I have. I haven't had a response.
Okay. When did you email them?
Must have been about 2 weeks ago. I sent another chaser this morning, but I thought it might be easier to call in because I was told the listing officer is the person to speak to.
Yeah, so they have a listing officer for the day hearings, but they don't have someone in particular there that's going to deal with the notes and everything. For the notes, it basically different courts, all courts do different things, so it's that's going to be able to release the notes. it goes over to a different court which does the resulting, and they would release the notes for yourself. So you said you emailed 2 weeks ago. What's the name of the case?
And it was 19th of August.
And are you a solicitor in the case? Who are you in regards to Mr. Smith?
No, so it was allegedly it was a liability order against me from council. So I'm trying to get a record of the hearing and a case file.
We wouldn't have it. So the council deals with it. All we do here is we issue the summons for the council. We let them use our rooms. For anything to do with the council, they have their own files and they got their own references, which is why it's not coming up on my system. It's a council tax matter.
But wouldn't that go through a judge?
Yeah, but they have their own judges. The council brings everyone that they need for their own cases. Like I said, all they do is use our rooms.
Oh, okay. So it's, okay.
So, obviously, you've emailed the courts. I can send another email over to the courts and let them know that you're after the file, but it's probably, they probably don't have anything to release because they don't own any of the, they don't keep any of the council taxes files. It will be the local authority that would have that, which will be able, whichever council launch the thing against yourself.
Okay,
Have you tried to speak to the council to see if they release the paperwork?
Yeah, I mean, they've sent me a liability order, but all it says on it is that there's 1,700. And so, I wanted to go and, stand before a judge, but there was never any, I didn't even have the option. It was just a virtual hearing, and the only option was to call the council. So I'm trying to find out who the judge is, and, there's got to be, surely there's got to be a jury or a judge.
So is it upcoming then? It hasn't happened yet?
No, it happened on the 19th of August.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I said, we don't get involved with the council tax matters. We just let them use our rooms and we issue the summons for them. Like I said, I can drop another email to the courts, but you probably won't hear back because they have no file for yourself. You're going to have to probably speak to the local authority and then see if they can release the paperwork for yourself.
All right, okay. All right, so who would the judge be then? So they just hire, what do they do? Hire a private judge?
They have I think they bring their own judges down. They don't use our judges. Let me just double check with one of my colleagues. Pretty sure that's what they say. Bear me a second. Hello?
Yeah, hi there.
Hi, thank you so much for holding. So I spoke to one of my colleagues. She said that she doesn't believe it's any of our judges because they don't do the hearing it's not a criminal case. It's more of a civil matter, so they would do it in their chambers and they would bring their own person down. But obviously to get this information and find out if it's correct, you're going to have to speak to the council. She said the exact same thing. We don't get involved in the matters and we wouldn't have paperwork for yourself.
That sounds crazy. Surely it's got to be a public public judge.
Yeah, but whether it's I don't know if it's going to be a criminal judge that's going to be making the decision or if it's a civil. Council tax is more of a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. I doubt that they will be using a criminal judge to make a decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your help. And what's your role there?
I'm an admin officer here. We're a contact centre. We take the calls for all magistrates in London.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your help.
No problem. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. So right, I put that, I played that because when I just say to people, the court, the council issue summonses and they just hire the room and they hire solicitors to pretend to be a judge, people don't believe me. Yeah, this is somebody who phoned up the court and they told them straight out. Right, it's not a real court. Right, if the council provides a judge in a case between you and the council, it's not going to be a real court, is it? No. There's a conflict of interest. Yeah. Well, they say to you, you don't have to go because they're going to pretend to have the case anyway. Right?
They're going to rule against you.
And they're obviously going to rule against you because the judge is working for the council. Yeah,
But it's. You don't have to go. You don't have to turn up.
You don't have to turn up, but they're going to pretend they had the court case anyway, and you've lost. So pay up. Again, it's fear tactics. It's fraud. It's null. Most people go or get scared because they think it's from a court, but it's not. And here's another bit from the Local Government Act of 1888. It says. that shall not authorise any county council or any committee or member thereof to exercise any powers of a court of record, right, or to exercise any jurisdiction under Summary Jurisdiction Act, or perform any judicial business, or otherwise act as justices of the justice or justice of the peace. They can't pretend to be a court. Specifically says that in that act, section 78, I think, 78. Yeah. So if they send you a summons, right, you can actually call their bluff and say, "Oh, hang on a minute, you can't do that according to the Local Government Act." Right? That'd be fraud, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be fraud? Yeah?
Denny,
How? I'm sorry.
I sort of heard, don't know where I heard it from, but that they're thinking of giving councils power to act.
Power to act?
Like policemen or whatever, you see.
Okay, well, they'd have to get rid of this first to act like a court. Right? They haven't got. I mean, I can't see how they can do that anyway, to act like police. But anyway, again, what I'm telling you here is what the law says, okay, and how to use their acts and statutes against them. Okay, so it doesn't matter. None of this matters when they bring out new acts and statutes. They don't matter. They're legal, not lawful. Okay, and you have law on your side. The legal bit is to frighten the muggles into submission, because they don't know that that legal isn't lawful.
What would happen in a situation that your case got rubber stamped, you didn't turn up, they decided you got to pay the 1,700 quid, and then you don't pay it? What do they do then?
Liability orders, yeah. So this is their weapon, okay, against us. The liability order, right? Well, first of all, magistrates' courts don't actually issue liability orders, okay, because magistrates' court do criminal cases, not civil. They can't issue liability orders. So their court isn't a proper magistrate's court. Okay? The actual form for creating a liability order was actually withdrawn in 2003, and it was never replaced. So there is no liability order. They can't make them anymore. They're just saying they have liability orders. That's why they say liability order notice. Does anybody remember from my common law talk what the word notice means?
Offer to contract.
Offer. It's an offer of a liability order. Doesn't mean it exists. They're offering you one. Yeah. So the liability order doesn't exist, right? And you can quote this to say, if somebody says, "Oh, there's liability," well, no, there's no such thing. Yeah, it was withdrawn in 2003, and I can show you where it is. So no, they'll only ever give you a notice of a liability order, right? And that's one thing you can ask the council. Can I actually see the actual liability order? And they'll say, "Well, we don't have one." That's it, gone. Okay. Yeah. So I left it. I shouldn't have left this one in, but essentially that's a summary of it. Right? Everything that's issued by this court, everything is null and void. But if you don't know that, it looks very scary. Okay? Don't be scared. The other thing, if you actually end up in one of these courts, if you actually go along, right, remember that they're not real judges, right? They're solicitors acting as a judge. Well, if you know certain things about judges, well, then you can terrify them, right? You can ask them if they're under oath. Well, this is a trick question, because if they're acting under oath and you don't see a jury, well, then it's not a real court, and he is unlawfully administering his oath. according to the Statutory Declarations Act 1835, Section 13. But if he isn't under oath, then he's not a real judge. And that's impersonating a public official, the Crime and Courts Act 2013. It's a double bind, he can't get away from it.
Well,
If you...
would it just be simple to say, look, can I ask you, and are you a real judge or not? He'd have to say, wouldn't he? You're talking about people who are masters of the art of words. Yeah, they'll tell you the truth, but in a way that sounds like they're answering your question. They'll say, they might say, well, I'm a justice of the peace, and they could have acted as a justice of peace like 2 years ago, but they said it. I'm justice of peace. You go, oh, okay. Right. This is why you say, are you under oath? That's a direct question. Yes or no answer, and both answers are going to trap him. Okay, because again, a judge cannot act in an administrative court. Yeah, there must be a jury. Yes.
So, Dave, just on this. So I was talking to somebody who's trained in common law, and they said to me they had to go to court for something. I can't remember what, and they asked the judge 3 times, "Are you acting under oath?" And each time the judge kind of got up and left, and got up and left, and the 3rd time they asked, it was like the case was ended. What is that? What's the significance of 3 times?
Well, supposedly different jurisdictions, but it's also the law of 3. Yeah, this is why during the pandemic thing they had the 3 phrases. It's the law of 3. There's something about saying things 3 times.
3 letters of acceptance 3 times, is it?
Sorry, second.
The letter of conditional acceptance, you do it 3 times.
Well, that's the three letters, I guess. But there's something in the power of 3 anyway. I've lost what we. What
saying about it was 3 times and the case was ended.
Yeah, well, there was a famous case that was quite cool, where we arrested a judge in Birkenhead. You can still find it on YouTube. Birkenhead arrest judge. You look for that, where Roger Hayes, who's having his court case, council tax case, asked the judge for his oath 3 times, and he refused 3 times, and then he said, arrest that man, because no longer he can't be a judge because he refused to show his oath. So we arrested him, and yes, all hell broke loose in the courtroom.
You're going to get yourself a bit of a reputation if you carry on.
I think I might have a bit of one anyway. Yes, so yeah, this is, again, if you find yourself in one of these fake courts, this is a great question to ask, right? Because it's a double bind. Yeah, you'll trap him no matter what he says. So one of the last things I'm going to talk about is preventing. This is another weapon in their arsenal, the attachment of earnings order. Okay. So what I do, what I did actually, this is the letter when the council were trying to get me or my company to.
Can we just have the last picture, please?
Huh?
Have the last picture very quickly. Sorry to be boring.
Yeah, so my company was trying to, or the council were trying to get my company to start deducting money from my wages, right? So I sent this to my company. Okay, so notice of prosecution. Make them an offer for the prosecution for unlawful deduction from wages. Dear sir, you've not been supplied with any valid, lawful and legal court-issued documentation to support an attachment of earnings. Again, they're basing it on this liability order that doesn't exist. Okay? According to the Employment Rights Act 1996, Section 13, the right not to suffer unauthorised deductions, subsection 1, an employer shall not make a deduction from wages of a worker employed by him unless the deduction is required or authorised to be made by virtue of a statutory provision or a relevant provision of the worker's contract, or the worker has previously signified in writing his agreement or consent to the making of the deduction. Okay, none of those apply. As previously stated, I do not give my agreement or consent to making of this deduction. According to the Attachment Earnings Act 1971, only courts can issue such orders, not private limited companies, even if they purport to be a local authority. There is no statutory provision for a local council to order deductions from earnings. The only way for such a company to legally or lawfully order you to make deductions is to first obtain a liability order from a court. Okay? Courts do liability orders, but not a magistrate's court and not for council tax. Followed by a court-issued attachment of earnings order. Applying a deduction from earnings without a valid court-issued liability order pursuant to the Attachment of Earnings Act 1971 would constitute an unlawful deduction from wages and a breach of Employment's Right Act. I strongly advise you to seek proper verification of the so-called order before implementing these deductions. And to this end, I enclose a notice of power of attorney granting you authorization to request, review and verify the liability order or any other information relating to this alleged attachment of earnings order. I put that in because when I first got the company to speak to the council said, oh, we can't talk about it because of data protection. So they can use it when it suits them, but yeah. So I gave them power of attorney to speak on my behalf, and the council couldn't pull that one. Okay, but that is about the last weapon that they have. Okay, I'm aware of the time, so there's loads of other stuff I could have put in here, right? But if you've got anything really specific, you know, you can actually get in contact with me, and I can sort of hold your hand through it. Okay, but here's the thing: we have to do something. We have to do something about this because they are coming for all of us. Right? They're serious about this great reset. You'll own nothing and be happy. They're serious about it. Yeah. Okay? And right now, right, there's all the muggles out there think that it's all over, we're going back to normal, but they don't know that you know, all these things are going on in the background, right, to try and force us into a position where we're so indebted, we're so desperate that we'll beg the government to help us.
But they're going to ramp it up. They're going to ramp it up.
And they're going to ramp it up. The first shot is this energy crisis thing, yeah? And it's going to force people to look at their bills and go, well, I can't pay this, what are we going to do, you know? And if they don't know that they can do what I've just been telling you, they'll be desperate. And they'll go for the solution that the government is going to provide them, yeah?
John Anthony Hill tried this years ago. He put together the 7/7 ripple effect film, and he did go to prison for a little while, even though they let him out. But with today being the day that some protest groups circled the Houses of Parliament for Julian Assange, I kind of lost a bit of hope all the time that he's in prison. That what chance do we stand when someone like that, a kind of legal team and experts, he's still stuck facing extradition? Because
he is an individual, right, who's got a lot of attention. Okay, so they have to do something about him.
Right.
Yeah, we are just the great unwashed. Okay, but
and we are many.
We are many. Yeah, and if thousands, hundreds of thousands of people do this is when they have to back off. That's what happened with poll tax. Yeah, people went, no, we're not doing this, and they all stood up, and the government had to back off. Of course, they still slipped it in later on as council tax, but still, people, and that was because everyone was exhausted by then, because, you know, but they still had to back off. Yeah, we got them to rename it, yeah! Victory! Yeah? Yeah.
Sorry, another question if you finish answering that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, thank you.
So the energy thing. So I'm curious and cynical, but open to it, right? Does it actually really work? Like not paying the suppliers or the billing company, and then I've changed my meter, and now I've got electricity and gas coming through anyway. who do I pay and how and what happens?
Have you not been listening? Okay, we'll sit at the front. Okay, no, I'll bring the chair right here. Okay, and we can. No, it's fraud. The whole thing is fraud. Okay, the utilities are free. Okay, we've just been by very slow increments, right, brainwashed into believing that we have to pay for it. In very slow increments over generations. Yeah? And they've built up this whole house of cards to make it look like there's a whole basis behind their claims. There isn't. And I've shown you enough things to show you there is no basis to what they're trying to do to us. But here's the thing, yeah? This quote, the nanny state can only exist while we remain as children. Yeah? They've kept us as children in this world. Yeah? All this stuff I've just been telling you, you should have known. You should have been taught. So you can approach this world as an adult. You know, when the teacher says, you know, the bully's attacking you, and the teacher says, don't fight the bully, come to me and I'll deal with the bully for you. Yeah? Well, that's when we should have stood up to the bully and be an adult about it, rather than let the nanny come and deal with it for us. And that's where we've got to let ourselves get to, where the nanny is going to do everything for us so we can stay as children playing in our playpen. Yeah? It's time for us to be adults in this world. Yeah? Take responsibility for everything in our world. Okay? That's what I'm trying to get across here. That this system can only stand if we stay as children. Yeah? It's coming for us anyway, so why not face it head on? So I hope that's been useful to you, and I'll try and make sure I get this thing out here.